思って。
今日はお忙しい中参加してくださりありがとうございます。私はオランダに在住しております加藤正恵と申します。これまで大学で中絶の権利、生殖技術などを研究してきました。現在は国際 NGO であるウーマンウェブで研究員をしております。今日は安全な中絶を提供するために20年以上活動してきたオランダ人医師のレベッカ・ゴンバーツさんとのインタビューを紹介します。レベッカ・ゴンバーツさんはオランダ人の中絶専門医で、ウーマン・ウェイブス、ウーマン・ウェブ、エイドアクセスの設立者です。1999年に設立されたウーマン・ウェイブスは、中絶が禁止されているか、非常に制限されている国を船で訪ね、どこの国にも属してない海、つまり公海で中絶を必要としている女性に中絶を提供する活動をしてきました。船はまさに動く診療所です。その後、世界でインターネットが普及していくと、レベッカはオンラインでの通信が人をつなげるという力に注目し、2005年にウーマンウェブを設立しました。インターネット、Eメールを駆使して世界中の多くの国々の中絶を必要としている人に中絶薬を提供する活動をしています。米国での中絶がどんどん困難になっている中、2018年には米国にエイドアクセスを設立しています。世界には中絶を絶対に認めず禁止している国や地域がたくさんあります。多くの女性がウーマンウェイブス、ウーマンウェブ、エイドアクセスで文字通り生命や人生を救われてきました。リーダーのレベッカは2022年のタイム誌の100人の最も影響力がある人に選ばれるなど世界的に評価され、数多くの受賞をしています。2022年だけでも5つの受賞をしています。次に、経口中絶薬についてお話しします。日本では2023年4月28日に承認されました。ミフェプリストンとミソプロストールという2種類の薬から成り立っており、胎盤などが出来上がる妊娠12週までなら、自然流産のような現象を引き起こすことによって、妊娠中絶を可能にするものです。中絶薬は1988年にフランスで承認され、2000年代前半くらいまでには、西ヨーロッパの多くの国々では、初期妊娠を中絶する方法として普及しました。女性たちは外科手術か経口中絶薬かどちらかを選べるようになったのです。オランダでは10週前後までならば自宅で服用します。症状は妊娠初期の自然流産と非常に似ており、月経より重めの痛み、経血を伴うのが通常です。女性は毎月月経を経験しており、また実は多くの女性が知らずに自然流産を経験しています。中絶薬を使った中絶は、女性にとって安全で安心な中絶ができる方法として、世界保健機関 WHO も必須医薬品にリストしています。その安全性と効果はすでに確立されたものであり、最近中絶が合法化されたアルゼンチンなどでは同時に経口中絶薬が承認されました。日本での承認に先立って死に至る出血量のこともある、陣痛並みの痛みなど責任のある立場の医師らがマスコミのインタビューに答える形で中絶薬は非常に危険であるという印象を与えたことは非常に問題だったと思います。研究者としての立場で女性からウーマンウェブへ来た相談には目を通していますが、死ぬって本当ですか？出血をしないで中絶できますか？など誤った方法により恐怖感を煽られている日本女性からの相談が多々あります。実際、中絶薬を服用して中絶を行った女性たちの実体験はどういうものかというと、ほとんどが中 通常の月経より少し大きい痛み、少し多い出血と答えており、満足度はほぼ 100% です。これは昨年、中絶薬で中絶した女性の痛みと出血体験と題して、私とレベッカがまとめたものが、ウーマンウェブのサイトにも載っています。私たちが行った調査では、経口中絶薬を服用しての中絶は 100% が成功していましたし、事故もありませんでした。この調査は、ウーマンウェブのホームページに行っていただいて、検索に加藤、ゴンバーツ、中絶薬などの言葉を入れてくだされば出てきます。また、ウーマンウェブは中絶薬を使う女性たちがいつでもどんなことでも相談ができる支援体制を組み、不安や恐怖感を払拭しています。私も所属する日本のソシレンは、中絶薬に関する正確な情報を日本社会に伝える必要性を感じています。また、レベッカさんの活動の根幹となっている思想を知りたいと思い、今回のイベントを計画しました。それではご覧ください。ここはウーマン・オン・ウェイブスのオフィス兼クリニックです。日本で同様のことをやるとしたら何が必要ですか？
This is the only thing you need. And this is the only thing you need. That's all. You don't need anything else. You don't need an ultrasound. You don't need a chair. You don't need anything. You only need the pills. And that's it.
Yeah.
So I can show you around because we do have an ultrasound. This is my ultrasound. Yeah. But you don't need it. But you can put this one in your pocket. You don't need a big thing where you don't need to make a vaginal ultrasound, which many doctors do. And actually that's a violation because it's very invasive. So that's all.
Yeah.
In 70% of the cases, women will be absolutely sure how long they're pregnant because they know how long when is their menstruation. They will know when they miss their menstruation, and you can calculate the duration of the pregnancy. And even if they're not quite sure, the only thing that you would like to know is that they're less than 12 weeks, because the longer the pregnancies, it will be a different process, and people have to be prepared. But even if in the second trimester, even if they would be up to 20 weeks, they can still do an abortion themselves at home. But then there will be a fetus, and it might be a more intense experience. So up till 12 weeks, according to the World Health Organization, women can do their own abortions at home without any medical supervision.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So we just need the pills. And we need to be able to buy them in any drugstore.
中絶薬を医師の管理下に置いたり、入院を義務付けるルールを持つ国はありますか？
No, it doesn't exist anywhere in the world, this rule, this regulation. In Italy, what they used to do, because the first tablet, when you use this one, it is blocking the hormone that is necessary to keep the pregnancy intact. So it blocks the hormone, but nothing will happen, right? You will just live as normal. You won't have pain, no bleeding. And then it's only 24 hours later when you will use the Cytotec, the misoprostol tablets, which are these. And people need 4 initially, and depending on how long they're pregnant, they can repeat it. And this is going to cause cramping and bleeding like a menstruation. So you don't need to be hospitalized for having a menstruation either.
No.
And women are not hospitalized for having a miscarriage either, I assume, in Japan. I hope they're not. Because it's, you can work, you can do things, you can live while you're having like bleeding. That's for a woman a totally normal situation. The other thing is, what I'm interested in knowing is that this medication is actually, if there is a miscarriage, like a spontaneous miscarriage, sometimes it doesn't get out, all of it. And these tablets are also, at this moment, the standard care in the Netherlands. So you don't do any surgical vacuum aspiration anymore, but you use the tablets, and it's the same tablets as mifepristone.
Yes, after natural miscarriage.
After
right?
natural miscarriage. Is it the same regulation that they have to be hospitalized for that? Because actually in the Netherlands, they are, the gynecologists, they say that you shouldn't do any surgical aspiration anymore because it's causing more complications later. It can cause that the womb will, the sides of the womb can go together. That makes women infertile, especially after a couple of times. And they found in another research that it has a higher risk of early birth.
経口中絶薬の方が女性の体にとって優しいのですね。
Yeah, it is. It's much more. But unless you have to be hospitalized, then it's not gentle anymore because it's like jail. Yeah, you tell people you have to stay in jail before you can get the medication.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. We would like to ask you some.
But the other thing is, can I ask something? You know, even if doctors say you have to be hospitalized, people can just go away, right? You can't keep somebody in hospital. So they could also, you could also kind of start this civil disobedience in Japan, telling women, when you got the pills, just leave. Don't stay in the hospital. You don't need to stay there because there's no need. I would even say it's a violation of the fundamental human rights because you are basically taking away people's liberty to move and to be free. If you tell them that they have to be hospitalized, it's a form of incarceration to do that. I would say it's stronger. It's not just not needed. It's actually it's criminal.
Great to hear.
医者になろうと思ったきっかけは何ですか？
I was very young when I started medicine, but I think my main motivation is that I felt that I wanted to mean something for people, and medicine is one of the very obvious way that you can do that.
Right.
It's an obvious way that you can be meaningful for other people.
グリーンピースの船に乗ったり、こういう挑戦的で困難な道を選んだのはなぜですか？
I think I wasn't very, well, always when I did my training in medicine, I had a huge problem with the hierarchy in the hospitals and the protocols. I thought it was not very interesting because a lot of the knowledge that you get as a doctor, there's not very much creativity in it. You have to stick to all these rules and there's like a lot of hierarchies. So it doesn't fit my personality. And so I was looking for an alternative way. And as a kid, I used to visit the Greenpeace boats and I was like very moved by it. So I decided that I applied for the Greenpeace boats to be, but you know, as a doctor there was not much to do. It was more the activism, and I was also a deckhand on the boats. I had to paint the boat. I had to do night shifts on the rounds on the boat. So it was not very interesting as a doctor. So and that is nice. Women on Waves combined the two. It's interesting as a doctor and it is meaningful as a life.
中絶が非合法の国々でこれまでどんなことを目撃しましたか？
So the first time I witnessed illegal abortions was actually in Africa. My father was working there in Frans Guyana, and I was working with a French doctor who was the hospital of the company where my father was working. And I remember specifically one case when a woman was brought in, severely bleeding, and she really bled almost to death. And the doctor said, well, we'll see if she makes it till the next day. And he really helped her to recover. But it was very intense. And then the day after, or 2 days after, he called me in. He was doing surgery. And he said, I'm now going to do an abortion. And it's illegal here. So you cannot tell anybody. And even the nurses were sent out. So I had to assist him. And so he taught me, and so he did abortions there. And he said the woman that was there, woman was almost dying. She tried to induce her own abortion.
Yeah.
She did it with sticks. So she had severe bleeding because she put things in her womb to make her bleed. So I saw in a few days' time, I saw this difference between a woman being brought in like severely bleeding, almost bleeding to death, and then this woman that was helped by this French doctor, and she just walked out really happy. And the funny thing is, I was pregnant myself at that moment, and I didn't realize it when we're doing the abortion. But I found out I was pregnant. It was a pregnancy I didn't want in Africa, and then I could travel back to the Netherlands to have an abortion there. So it was these three really intense moments in a very limited time frame that really shaped my view.
Yeah, indeed.
アメリカ合衆国では中絶する医師が撃たれたりしています。アクティビストとして怖くないですか？
Yes, well, sometimes it happens. And the last time that happened, where I was like, oh shit, what did I do? Was when I got a warning letter from the federal drug agencies from the United States, because I also started a new service for the US in 2018. And in 2019, I got a warning letter that I had to stop doing what I was doing. And so I hurled it up in my bed for 3 days. And I read all the FDA rules that existed, and I called with everybody that I knew. And then I found, and then you had these lawyers said, oh, no, in the US, by the way, if you want to have real advice, it's $500 per hour. And I was like, oh shit, I can't pay that. So, but then I found a really nice lawyer. His name is Richard Hearn. And we cooked up and we said, okay, we're going to sue the FDA for writing you this letter. So that was nice, because then it's a moment of disempowerment and how you can transform that and return that into a moment of empowerment again. And then it was, okay, we're going to sue the FDA. We did. We sued the FDA in the courts. We lost, but it didn't really matter.
反中絶の動きも活発です。どのように中絶の権利の運動を続けていきますか？
So I do think that the abortion pill is really instrumental in this opposition, because it takes away, to have a pill, to take a pill, in a sense, it cannot be controlled. If you had surgical abortion, that is, you need to have a doctor or somebody who knows what to do with, so that you won't cause any harm. And so the pill is really, it's such a revolution in terms of being able to take it on your own terms and under your own control. This is one of the reasons why the anti-abortion movement in the United States is trying to take Mistrust off the market. There will be the decision of a court case next week by a very Christian fundamentalist judge. And people are really scared that it will be taken off the market totally, the mifepristone. These are, but and then again, it doesn't matter, because women will get the pills anyway, by post, by mail, by other women's organizations. Like, for example, in many Latin American countries, it's the women's rights organizations that are giving out the abortion pills and supporting women to do the abortion. And so that will also happen in other countries, right? Where the pill will be taken off the market. Yeah.
中絶へのアクセスを難しくすれば、中絶の件数が減ると言われることがあります。本当でしょうか？
No, we know from research, there's been a lot of research that making access to abortion difficult doesn't reduce the amount of abortions. On the contrary, actually, because there's very little sex education, there's little access to contraceptives as well. It makes abortion more. There are more abortions in countries where abortion is illegal than in countries where it's legal.
Why is it so, you think?
I think it's also, there's another reason, which we research with Women on Web, which is if it's illegal and people panic because they don't want to be pregnant, the moment you find help, there's no space for second thoughts. So in this whole process of panic and needing to take care and organizing your abortion, you cannot allow yourself to think about what you actually, and what we found with Women on Web in Ireland, for example, is that women sometimes ordered the tablets, And then and that's what they wrote. When the moment they had it in their hands, they said, and now I can really make a decision, because they had the choice. At that moment, you have the choice. Do I want to take these pills or don't I want to take these pills? And I think that is really fundamental in order to really get back to your own motivation. And this fundamental feeling of really being able to decide yourself is so important. And you take that away. You take it away with surgical abortion to start with, because it's a doctor that is giving you the surgical abortion. And so it takes away your own agency totally. And that is so beautiful about the abortion pills. The agency is fully with the women. But the moment that you're going to block access to these pills, again, you take away the agency and you make it so much harder. And people are not able anymore to make a decision in their own terms. So it's so fundamentally important. And so we saw 12% of the women in Ireland that got the abortion pills decided not to use it, but they were so grateful to have it in their hands. And that is why I say the only right way that abortion pills should be available is over the counter. You should go into any drugstore to buy it. And that's it. And it should be $2. Everybody should be able to afford it. And then you can have it in your cabinet whenever you need it. And then there's real choice.
Yeah, indeed. So you think even that medical doctors do not have to be in between for prescription, for example.
I don't think so.
Why
I think doctors should not, because they're gatekeepers. What I noticed here, for example, since I started seeing undocumented women again here, is that the moment that somebody comes in, they feel that they have to have an excuse why they are doing it, right? They come and, why are they pregnant? And I am probably most of the most accessible doctor concerning abortion that exists. And my attitude can already make so much difference for this woman. So when I ask her, so did you use contraceptives? She was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't be here. I forgot to take my and when I say, okay, so tell me you need an abortion pill. Fine, you're sure? Okay. And then people are so relieved that they don't have to explain themselves and defend themselves. So the taboo is so big. And I think it really, the safety of this drug is so big. It's safer than any over-the-counter medication. It's safer than paracetamol, than other painkillers. It's safer than Viagra. There's no reason medically seen why it shouldn't be over the counter. The only reason why you need a doctor's prescription is because of mistrust to women. They don't trust women to be able to do this on their own, in their own terms, and to make that decision themselves. And I think that mistrust is something that has been built up for centuries. And that is the only reason why there's still a doctor prescribing it. It's mistrust. And I think it's unacceptable.
中絶薬は危険だから厳しい管理下に置かなければいけないとも言われていますが。
Also, let me compare it with normal miscarriage, right? So why I say this should be over the counter. Women have miscarriages in 20% of the pregnancies, they have a miscarriage. They never go to a doctor if they don't have a complication for that. You're pregnant, you start bleeding. If it's very early in pregnancy, sometimes you might not even know that you're pregnant. Women have been dealing with this for centuries by themselves. And only when there's a complication, when you have too much bleeding or an infection or something else, you go to a doctor, right? So this is exactly the same. This is like a miscarriage that you're creating with pills. There's nothing medically complicated about that. Women have given birth for centuries on their own, which is really, really dangerous. So the alternative, giving birth, is like 60 times more dangerous than an abortion. And to say that you have to count all these pills, what does that say, right? I mean, it's not because it's dangerous, it's because the mistrust of women specifically.
Mhm.
I mean, they're not counting Viagra pills, are they? Like, many more men die while using Viagra. It's, I think, 1 in 20,000.
Mhm.
So it's this discourse of protection is actually about control.
Mhm.
It's all about controlling
Mhm.
women and their bodies.
Mhm.
And they use this discourse of medical protection. And it's very dangerous. And we have to deconstruct it
Mhm.
because it's a discourse that is used often.
Yeah.
The discourse of protection is often about control at the fundamentals.
Yeah.
日本やオランダを含め、多くの国では中絶は刑法で犯罪とされ、条件付きで合法化されていますが、
Okay, so I think in the Netherlands, some things have changed now. For example, we got the approval, a law was just passed after 15 years of work. A law was just passed to allow the prescription of medical abortions by general practitioners so that people can get it in the pharmacy, etc. Because before it used to be only available in specialized clinics as well. And if it was outside the specialized clinic, it had a criminal, you could go to jail for 4 years, even if you're a doctor, even if you're a doctor that knows what to do. It was very, and now some of the political parties, they are looking into the decriminalization of abortion to take it out of the criminal law, which is nice if you look at but we are backwards. The Netherlands is extremely backwards if you look in comparison to other countries around us. In France now, it will be a constitutional right. In Belgium, they took it out of the penal code. But the reality is that most countries around the world, it is still in the penal code, except for Canada. It's not in the penal code either. And these are really old laws that were put in place, like in the 19th century, before women had voting rights. And these laws were spread by the colonizing countries, so France and the colonialist laws. And they were actually, you know why they were put in place? They were lobbied for by male doctors, because before everything which had to do with the fertility, birth, abortions, contraceptives, it was done by women, by midwives, by witches, whatever you call it. So it was really women amongst each other that were taking care of their own health issues. And then at some point, the Catholic Church started the first male doctor, the first medical schools, and it was only for men. And they lost income because of the women that were providing this kind of care. So it was really because they charged much more money. So, and then the doctors started lobbying for making it illegal to have contraceptives, to have abortions, all these things that were not concerned to be part of the medical professions they wanted to have. So that is the history of Europe. Yeah, it's something that we see in many countries around the world, where the more autocratic regimes, the more harder it is to access contraceptives and also abortion. It's now in Russia. They are doing the same thing in China, in Turkey, in Hungary. US state, the United States. It's really restricting actually, and you see it's really it's almost an indicator for autocracies and the lack of democratic processes. But I always like the story about Japan as well, is where, you know, also the contraceptive pill was only registered really very late, very recently, and it was only because when Viagra was introduced, then it was almost passed without any condition.
避妊や中絶が容易になったら性が乱れるという考え方が背景にあるからですよね。
Yes, well, I hope they do, that they can enjoy sex a little bit more. The question is always why, but I think the problem with the discourse is already that that you start with the assumption that an abortion is something wrong, and then you want to prevent something that's wrong. So we as feminists have to say, well, it's not wrong. It's just the fact of life. We need them. There's no right or wrong to it. It's just the circumstance which is right or wrong. It's not the abortion itself. And I think it's really important to not go into that kind of discourse that we have to keep it rare.
中絶は女性の人権ですが、中絶をして悲しむ人もいます。このことについてどう考えますか？
I think it's extremely important to feel that, and I also know that I felt it with my abortion, that there's some really deep grief, but grief is not about moral wrong or right. So I think we have to distinguish these two, and I think that is where the conversation becomes. And that is true. I think that we need to recognize the pain and the grief that can come with it. Not with everybody. Some people don't have any, it's just relief, but there's many people that also feel deep grief and pain. And that's okay. And that's part of our lives. That's part of our life's decisions. And I think we should never deny that. Because it's important to allow and to give space for all kinds of emotions that come up with this kind of life events, because they can be really important decisions in somebody's life. It's one moment where you decide what route your life is going to take. It's two totally different lives, totally different outcomes of your life. Is that moment that you decide. And you cannot compare these experiences, and you cannot compare the feelings that people have.
Which is right, which is wrong.
But it's not about right and wrong. It's about an emotion that is fundamentally attached to a meaningful experience in people's lives. But that is something different than right and wrong. And people can grieve deeply and be sad and still know for sure they want to have the abortion and that it's the right decision for them. And that is, I think, the reality for most people. They know this is what they want and they know this is what they need and they have no doubt, and still they grieve. And that's okay. But I don't think it's only with abortion. I mean, I don't know how you are, but as a mother, I feel constant guilt. I constantly feel guilt that I don't give my children what they need. So I don't know if that's specifically attached to abortion. It's, I think, attached to kind of the whole, idea of what you need to give as a woman, as a mother, as a,
中絶に対し、説教をしたり、痛み止めを減らしたり、懲罰的態度を取る医師がいます。
It's so disgusting. But that is also why doctors should not be the gatekeepers, right? Because they have their own moral values and they tend to protect it on women. And that is really, and I think we should really liberate people from that, because I think also here you do see it. For example, if somebody comes from a repeated abortion, oh, you were here a half a year ago, what are you doing here again? And I think that is so it's so offensive, as if it matters. But again, that is this, it's also a form of punishment, right? To say that people shouldn't be.
It's like
it's
judgmental.
It's judgmental.
Where does this come from among medical doctors, if I may say?
Oh well,
is it because
it's power? And I don't think many doctors don't realize how this power corrupts them and feels that they're entitled to have a judgment over people. And I think that is something that we're not trained in, because we are trained into that we have all the knowledge, that we are the gateway to making people better. But that comes with this part where, instead of reflecting on the power that you have over other people and how sensitive you have to be with that, it's really an issue in all the trainings. But I don't think that I think the society is giving doctors way too much power, and it shouldn't do. And that is why we have to fight to get these things in our own hands, because people can you can buy bleach in any supermarket, right? A bleach like that you clean, cleaning stuff. if you drink it, you die, right? We would never question that possibility of people to buy bleach, but we do question them if they can take a pill themselves. So there's so much inconsistency about how kind of dangers are being addressed.
Yeah.
懲罰的な態度を取るのは、医師たちも中絶に罪悪感を感じているからという可能性はありますか？
If doctors feel guilty, well, the doctors that feel guilty doing abortions, they don't do them usually. They just say they don't want to do them or they stay away from it. So I don't know that's true. No, I do think that the problem is changing the criminal code is very difficult. And it requires all political parties usually to be online. And the problem is that many political parties don't want to address abortion as an issue. That's important because of the moral,
in the Netherlands.
Also in the Netherlands, because of the moral status of it. So it's still a long way to go. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't think, and doctors are not usually very political. They just do, again, we are taught to act according to protocols. So that's what we do. When you say a doctor, you have to do, there's very few doctors that are actually kind of, there are doctors. I mean, I generalize. I have many colleagues who fight with me in this. Like my board member, Gnilla Kleiverda, many doctors that are working with me, but they also recognize that this is a problem with a lot of the medical professions. And they have an interest in maintaining the status quo because it's their income. And the moment that this is over the counter and it's not in the criminal code anymore, then they don't have a role. And for example, what we saw in the Netherlands when we were lobbying for the abortion pill with the general practitioner, the abortion clinics, they opposed it. They fought it every way they could. And they were saying, oh, the general practitioners, they cannot do this. They don't have the experience. We know best. We can help women, blah, blah, blah. It was deeply shocking that it's not about the women and what they need and want, but about all these other interests that people are only interested in protecting. So that is what you see also with the GPs in Japan. It's not about what is in the interest of women. It's what's in their interest.
最後に、この動画を見ている人たちにメッセージをお願いします。
So my last words are, it's up to us, women, to make sure that we get the access to the abortion the way we need it and we want it. So the Japanese government can now decide that it will only be through male doctors and hospitalization. And that means that we have to design a campaign for active civil disobedience. For example, by not using the doctors, Mistrust, but by going to women on web, getting the pills in advance so that you have them in your house, so that you don't have to go to a Japanese doctor and being hospitalized. That would be a good action to do. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So if everybody that listens to this, just get your abortion pills, then you don't have to deal with the system. Again, I think the guilt is not just about abortion. We feel constantly guilty towards our children. We constantly feel guilty as women that we don't give enough, we don't care enough, we're not good enough, we're not. So it's part of, this is not about abortion. This is how we have been diminished and being subordinated as women. The guilt feeling is the most powerful form of subordination that has been ingrained in us for centuries. So we cannot expect it to be just gone like that. So don't see this guilt just as guilt about the abortion. It's about this existential guilt that was put in our lives, in our heads, in who we are under male domination. I think that's actually the answer.
Thank you so much.